This is why I have grown more of a liking for the latter Ninjago characters. We'll start with the Time Twins. I've grown more of a liking for the Time Twins because we saw how one of them had survived for decades on end and had been one of the many people Wu left in the dust and left shrouded in mystery for his past. Since I like seeing characters who have characters they choose to never mention in their long life because it paves way for a more in-depth eventual character arc and question and gets more questions answered. Since I do like the feeling of suspense and the feeling of speculation in character arcs. And they just really did give me Thanos vibes. I just feel like cocky villains are always good villains to be the ones who control time. Because they do just that. Let the fact they have the power to control the universe get to their head. And it's good to see people who are that overpowered get cocky about it because it paves way for the team to eventually learn how to overcome it. I also like how they were the ones to take on Wu because we eventually get to see how strong Wu really is. And I feel like we finally started going back to the more hand-to-hand days of Ninjago. After we had intangible villains like Moro and Nadakon, we finally started focusing more on hand-to-hand, then whichever magic that's needed to stop. And it was just fascinating to see someone who was actually Wu's size and Wu's former ally be the one to stop Wu and turn him into a child. I feel like this was finally just the start of seeing Wu's former failures finally start coming back to him. Since for a long time, Wu's past remained shrouded in mystery before things started getting answered. I used to think they were a little too persistent for my liking, but I've changed that opinion. I feel like Ninjago needs more villain that really pave way for. I feel like Ninjago needs more villains like that to really pave way for more character progression, especially ones who are overly persistent to stop certain characters, specifically Wu. I've grown even more of a liking for Moro than we had before because I feel like this is when the fun of mixing generic mythical elements like ghosts had really started in the series. And I feel like choosing Ghost of all generic elements was a very good formula. It finally teaches Ninja that sometimes it takes more than just ninjutsu to stop things. Another reason why I like Moro is because of his mask. I just like masked villains because I like the feeling of someone covering up their true identity to pave the villainy and the mastery given in characters to keep the story going. I know most people think masked villains are cowardly, but I feel like it paves way to a deeper story arc if they don't just show their face that quickly. And now that I rewatched some of Moro, it was nice to really show what an evil green ninja would have looked like since he was the, I guess you can say, original green ninja. And the kind of voice he used seemed extremely fitting for a ghost sorcerer ninja. And not to mention, to end off his character arc, he was given a redemption arc since he actually helped a ninja, and his final line was saying goodbye to Wu. Asphira. I've grown more of a liking for Asphira than what we had before because I feel like this is what truly defined Wu. This is what defined Wu finally realizing in the end his past grievances and his past back-turning moments would finally come back to him in the end. It was also good to have one of the snakes back because I like seeing times in the show when it stays true and stays original to its very first formula. I also like seeing the element of fire get used and utilized by someone other than Kai. I like seeing anti-elemental powers and prowess suppressed to an actual good, opposed to an actual good one, because it lives up to fan ideas of what an evil interpretation of it can look like, and not only fan ideas but my ideas. Some think it's just irritating, but I actually like seeing grudge-holding villains get introduced. It really just paves the way for further characterization. Ronin. I've grown more of a liking for Ronin because I had grown much more of a liking for bounty hunters in general, which arose from my love for Cad Bane, from Star Wars back in my Clone Wars binge watch. It's good to see a nuisance to the main villains and even main antagonists at times because it shows how no matter how much different elements get added, they will always be the one guy that finds creative ways to stop and mess with them without using certain magic to stop that element. Like how Cad Bane had rather creative and clever ways to kill Jedi. That's exactly what Ronin did in Ninjago, and I really hope we do eventually see more of him. And last but not least, Vangelis. I've grown more of a liking for Vangelis because it was nice to see how two-faced he actually was and how he played both sides. It made me think of Palpatine from Star Wars. And it was really good to see that he was the reason why Cole had grown more of a character. I feel like we really needed specifically more of Cole characterization since for the past seasons it hadn't really focused on Cole as much. other than the time he was turned into a ghost. But the only time it was really focused on Cole was when it was about misfortunate things. And the biggest questions had finally gotten answered because of Vangelis' troubles alone. Whose Cole's mother even was. And that's why I've grown more of a liking for those characters. All of these characters. All of these villains slash antagonists.